Alright, did you guys know that Deadeye, which is found on archers, pierces through damage reduction? And therefore, by that logic, Legendary Lyn counters Legendary Sigurd. Yeah, no. But we'll look at Wind Legendaries in this video, okay?
Let the lesson begin.
What's up guys, Akariss here, bringing you another Fire Emblem Heroes video. Today's video is going to talk about Legendary Heroes, and more specifically, the Wind Legendary Hero. So that you can think of this as a brand new series, I wanted to talk about and cover, kind of review and rank legendaries, since it's been a while and dual skills are mostly like kind of new and upcoming, that it's relevant to look at these legendaries in a new light. Now, I did talk about the water legendaries back on Legendary Violet's release, I believe. If I haven't, I'll go over them. But I want to start this series at least with wind in a more updated fashion, with dual skills also affecting cavalry and bringing them up to 175 scoring in arena. It's fairly relevant to talk about all of them. There's also all these characters getting refined and skill refines, so weapon and skill refines. And therefore, there's quite a bit to talk about. Now, obviously, before you even watch this whole video, it doesn't take much knowledge or information of playing Fire Emblem Heroes to tell you that Legendary Sigurd is the best Wind Legendary. But I will tell you why, and why the other ones could potentially be very good as well, and maybe even compete with him to some extent. Maybe. Alright guys, so before we begin, if you enjoy this content and you want to see it coming, the like button is completely free. Smash it. Thank you. It does help the reach. Sub if you haven't already. And if you want to see more of me, Instagram is below. If you want to support the channel, Patreon is also there. Give a shout out to those at the end of the video. Thank you guys for doing what you do. So let's talk about Wind Legendaries. 7 in the game right now, with Legendary Sigurd being the most recently released one. And some of the old ones have really gotten a bit better, specifically Gunnthra from her weapon and skill refine, as we'll no doubt see throughout this video. What I want to focus though on is how I think about them overall in the game's current space. So just to kind of make you think about why I rank them this way, there's going to be a comfy blackboard under me to get you thinking about why I rank them the way I do. This is more of a general list, tier list if you may, about how I feel about every single legendary. So based on these points below, you'll see why certain ones are at the top and why certain ones are at the bottom. It's pretty easy to go based off of that. Now, things can definitely change, especially since Legendary Lucina is already really good with B-Dual Infantry and is probably due for a Thogan, or I hope I said that right, Thogan Bow Refine and Future Vision upgrade, which is already good, and I am going to be quite shocked to even see it get better. Now, Gunnthra went from basically completely unused to being one of the best Wind Legendaries in the game because of Chilling Seal and Blizzard's synergy, but also, as you can see by the points below me, support capabilities, combat prowess, scoring pretty well because of her preference B skill, and the utility. You can actually use her pretty well in offense and defense of ether raids if you choose to do so. Someone like Corrin unfortunately doesn't bring support, while scoring pretty well and being pretty good at combat is held back by those certain natures. Now, if you look at someone like Elwood, he has support, but unfortunately his combat, his utility, and how well he scores being literally like the worst one of this batch, tied with Lyn. So that's unfortunate. Now, Laws of Decay 2 being an A slot and not having dual or score increase really does put Lyn literally in last place, and I just hope they do something to Swift Mulligear to make her relevant. Even just trying to like use Lyn and then seeing a Legendary Sigurd on the enemy team in arena sounds like complete and utter suffering. So, as you can imagine, I really feel for anyone who is fully invested in Legendary Lyn, and that's unfortunate. But let's jump straight into some recommended builds and why exactly certain legendaries are worth your investment, if nothing else, if you haven't gone through the process of investing into a Wind Legendary, or you have some mid merged and you're just kind of unsure where to go. So we'll start this one with the most obvious one, which is literally Legendary Sigurd. So Legendary Sigurd is, there's not really that much to go over here, but he is the best guy, the best Wind Legendary you can go for, despite safe defense or, you know, whatever gravity ploy, stall ploy, it doesn't really matter. The dude has 4 movement. It's going to generally work in your favor, especially if you're using him the way you want to. His stat spread is good, and his special, which basically defines him, provides his whole team with extra movement on top of doing more damage based on his attack stat and buffing everyone even further. It's a bit ridiculous. It's a bit ridiculous. Very, very overtuned man, but it is what it is. So if you wanted to use him as a one-off, he does a pretty decent job in AR, honestly, with both AR offense and AR defense. If you were to give him near trace, you can use him pretty well with the addition of safe defense. So he is gladly taking that first spot here for Wind Legendaries. Up to a max investment, he is no slouch in scoring really well. Can basically carry Arena by himself if you really needed him to, considering all the damage reduction and just great synergy among his spells with added support utility. There's probably, if there is like an overall legendary list on who is the best, Legendary Sigurd is by far up there without a doubt. But we're not going to spend this whole video on Sigurd because honestly you guys will already know what I'm talking about here. Next up is Lucina. I actually believe Lucina is still basically right behind Sigurd, and the reason for that just is primarily defined by future vision. Being able to use mobility in Arena makes your experience much better. It's one of the big reasons that Corrin is the best water legendary, and it is still one of the better reasons that Lucina is a really good Wind Legendary. She's definitely bumped up by the fact that you can use the new Dual Infantry 4 on her. Future Vision is a more aggressive version of Change Fate, if you ask me, because Swap lets you move forward. And you can actually use it twice in a row to create a sort of reposition effect as well, although you would end her turn by doing so. Now, she will be due for a Future Vision upgrade and her bow, Thogan, which is basically just forward all stats on initiation, nothing too fancy. But once she gets those, if she does get those, I could definitely see her competing with Sigurd in that top slot for the best Wind Legendary. If you are thinking about it, it's also a great thing to think that it's on. She's going to be on a remix, like remix banners, and remix banners give you that spark and more of an obvious merging trajectory when it comes to whoever she shares with. Like, it's not divided among 3, it's just her and one other unit, which usually is good fodder. For example, Shinnen was on the most recent remix, I believe, and I don't think anyone's going to complain about the fodder that he provides your characters with. So if you're going to be using Lucina, she does work pretty well as a one-off in AR as both an offense and defense character. In offense, she provides that future vision support and some decent support capabilities. She has some role overlap now with Uller, so if you happen to have Uller, then you probably shouldn't use Lucina, just so you're not clogging your blue bow slot. And of course, if you have Corrin, he could be pretty good if it's water season. So that's all dependent on the season. But honestly, on AR offense or defense, and I've lost many times to Future Vision just because of the immense range that it has, she is great to consider to put there. Finally, if you go bring her up to +10, she's no slouch as well when it comes to combat capabilities. You could run Deadeye as well here, although I feel like Ruptured Sky is easier to charge and is pretty good and decent in the current meta, just for the amount of high attack and potentially dragons and beasts that you could do lots of additional damage to. The thing to look out for here is definitely a Future Vision and Thogan upgrade. That's what's going to make her stand out. Next up is Gunnthra, and Gunnthra has gone massively buffed in the past few months. She unfortunately does not have access to G-Dual Cavalry 4 yet, but I'm sure in a month or 2, maybe 3, it'll be released, and she's going to be exactly where I think she'll be, which is right there among the best Wind Legendaries. So the reason she's so good is because she has innate synergy and support capabilities while scoring fairly well, and provides great, like having a range cav in arena, for example, lets you really play around with AI shenanigans and mechanics where you can create rally loops and create space or set up matchups that are in your favor. This is, again, Sigurd can do kind of the same thing, but Gunnthra does it as well, and that's why they are up there, because you can really control the pace of your game just based off that range alone. So no slouch when it comes to combat. She doesn't have a great stat spread, but that doesn't really matter when you consider what her tome does, which basically says I am going to instantly nuke the target that I want to right off the face of the game if it has any penalties at all. And applying those penalties is really easy when you consider Chilling Seal basically splashes debuffs upon your foes, and the only way they don't instantly die to Gunnthra is if they negate penalties, such as Brave Hector. Yeah, or Fjorm, which is kind of funny considering it's her sister. But if you do end up using Gunnthra, and of course when she has G-Dual Cavalry 4, she's a bit slouching in the scoring department until she gets that, it's not that difficult to use her, and her attack power does reach easily into the 80s or 90s and will not disappoint you. Finally, the last one I want to talk about in this video, I'm not going to go over all of them because honestly, it's probably not a great idea to consider the ones in the B. You could probably pick up Elwood as a one-off, but I don't think investing into him right now is a good option. The last one I'll talk about is Corrin here. Corrin is great for scoring. She's great at combat, but unfortunately, she lacks when it comes to AR utility and her support capabilities, which are basically non-existent. She's definitely carried by being a great overall neutral matchup type of character, and her build flexibility lends to that. Negating Fang is very unique as a special because damage piercing, going through damage reduction, such as Deadeye and such, or Twin Blades or whatever, doesn't go through damage reduction specials such as Negating Fang, Pavis, Sacred Cowl, Escutcheon, whatever. Those skills, those specials, are not affected by that, and therefore Corrin has some longevity as a solid carry unit where she's always going to get value out of something like Negating Fang, unless they release a skill which says goes through damage reduction specials, which they could always print, and that would be kind of unfortunate, but I do believe Corrin will be held up pretty well when it comes to combat. Being colorless is always a great thing through the fluctuations of the game's meta shifts. So how you definitely use Corrin, or one of the great ways to use Corrin, is going to be stuff like Dragon Wall. Her Shield Pulse is solid, you don't really need to swap that out, or Null Follow-Up. And honestly, Null Follow-Up might be the right idea if you're gonna match her up against Legendary Sigurd to deny his auto double, and then she'll end up killing back on him. Now, of course, when it comes to the other matchups, and you have maybe someone who deals with Legendary Sigurd that isn't Corrin, you definitely can opt for Dragon Wall or even keeping Shield Pulse. The problem with, of course, removing Shield Pulse is you will be more reliant on Special Acceleration. Times Pulse is a solid way to do that. If you have an ally who provides Infantry Pulse, that's great, because generally speaking, she's going to be one of the lower HP units on your team. Providing blessings to others usually means that they should be able to outscale them, or refining a weapon will generally do that. So Corrin does get a from me because, of course, her combat is neutral and really solid. You're not going to run into a scenario, you're not going to run into like Raven Tomes, for example, where she's going to have a lot of trouble. They're pretty rare. Basically, Nagi is the only one I've ever seen in Arena, to be honest. And yeah, that pretty much covers my analysis, my thoughts, my review on all the Wind Legendaries as it stands. Expect me to make a video on Water, Fire, and Earth as well, maybe around the time that we get a new Legendary. And I'll be excited to definitely share that with you guys. Right now, this is where it stands. Unfortunately, I don't have much to say for Hrid, Lyn, or Elwood. They're just not great investments. Like, Hrid is strictly outclassed by Legendary Sigurd. He's going to require a huge rework on his Freezing Seal and weapon to really get on the same level there. Lyn, well, they got to do something with Swift Mulladeer, guys. And finally, Legendary Elwood, great support, but unfortunately really doesn't have much for combat or like too much utility, unfortunately, beyond just some support here and there. Okay, guys, that's scoring as well. Anyways, guys, that's it for me. Thank you for watching as always. Smash the like button, sub if you haven't. I'll see you guys in the next one. Much love. Peace.
It's over.